Welcome. My name is Hasrizal, an M.Ed student in Diversity and Inclusion at the School of Education at Trinity College, Dublin. I will be presenting a topic examining labeling practices in inclusive education. Referring to the Inclusion Dialogue podcast, Professor Richard Rose's conversation with Dr. Banks emphasized the essential role of language and labels in inclusive education. We can all agree that labels help provide better support for students with disability, but they also come with risk. Labels are often heard when these children are being bullied, or more subtle, their identity is shadowed by the disability. Professor Emmering, in her book Leading Inclusion from the Inside Out, and also in her speech at the NCSE Annual Research Conference 2023, emphasized a similar point. She observed that a deficit language is still commonly used to describe children who are seen as needing extra or special or additional support to succeed in school. This is not how it should be. So, when it comes to discussing policy and current legislation, if it is demonstrated that using labels or the absence of them causes harm to children and leads to discrimination, we must recognize that in addition to various laws related to children with disability here in Ireland, the Equal Status Acts 2018 requires schools to protect students with disabilities from bullying, discrimination, or harmful labeling. The focus is on protecting the children, and this need to be reviewed from time to time. In order to navigate the complexity of pros and cons in using labels, here are the key questions I am exploring. Number one, how do professionals perceive and utilize labels in inclusive education? Two, how do labels impact children's access to opportunities and support? Three, are there more effective ways to communicate about disabilities that can help us support children with additional needs without relying on labels? All these three questions will be discussed in the framework of these foundational principles as highlighted by Kaufman and Badar 2014. The authors stress the necessity of more precise thinking and clearer communication in special education. They assert that the language of inclusion is originated and grounded in human constructions where human rights emerge, which are undeniably significant. And at the same time, simultaneously, disability is understood through a logical mathematical framework, recognizing them as real, fact, observable conditions. Certain impairments are linked to biological or neurochemical factors that cannot be easily altered. While it may appear beneficial to avoid categorizing these conditions as problems, doing so may risk overlooking the significant challenges individuals encounter. If we look into the history here in Ireland, as in many regions worldwide, the education of children with disability has evolved significantly. Prior to independence, these children face a period of neglect, invisibility, and denial regarding their educational needs. Over time, this perspective shifted towards the establishment of special schools, leading us to the present era of inclusion. Accompanying these changes, the language and terminology we use to describe these issues have actually also evolved. Why it is important to examine the evolution of the labels? Osgood 2006 emphasized that nomenclature or the naming process is crucial in shaping our understanding of disability. The terms we use can influence our perception of disability. It also determines the official names of institutions such as asylums, hospitals, or schools and dictate how disabilities are categorized. The evolution of these terms prompts us to reflect on the history, social context, and even ideologies that underpin them. So let us take a look into how some of these terms have evolved over the years. We actually have transitioned from labeling a dumb child in an asylum as vicious to celebrating a valued child with autism in an inclusive school receiving, hopefully, a world class education in 2026 if we are speaking about Ireland. This achievement is one we must cherish. This transition benefited from our growing knowledge and understanding of disability, which can be viewed through several different models as explained by Flood 2010. Over time, the medical model has become the most dominant approach. Advancements in medical sciences have enabled experts to understand disabilities better and to develop medical and pharmacological interventions aimed at quote unquote fixing them. However, while researchers in this field often focus on the needs of groups, the unique experiences of individuals are frequently overlooked. To address this issue, the social model was introduced, which has helped to refine our understanding of disability. This model has encouraged more humane and inclusive practices, particularly in public services such as education. Flood 2010 further explained that in order to gain a more 360-degree holistic comprehensive understanding of disability, one that encompasses biological, psychological, and social factors, disability is now commonly described using biopsychosocial and bioecological models, recognizing the interaction between all these different domains. So, with all those understanding in our background, let us look into the negative and the positive impact of labeling. Research by Lotland and Ball 2020 and Azharani 2023 highlights that labels understandably risk stigmatization and social isolation, which affecting self-esteem and self-image. These labels can even cause teachers and parents to lower their expectations, holding back a child's full potential. Additionally, relying too heavily on a medical model can create a narrow perspective where we risk overlooking the child as a whole person in their broader social context. And the same study also highlighted several positive impacts of using labels to specialized educational services. The researchers argued that labels can actually improve access to specialized educational services. For children with disabilities, merely attending school is not enough. They need to learn in ways that cater to their individual needs. A clear label helps develop evidence based teaching strategies and individualized education plans. Without a specific label, it can be difficult for a child to receive appropriate advocacy or connect with others facing similar challenges, potentially leading to feeling of isolation. I discussed this with my spouse who works as an emergency physician. She frequently treats young adults who express feelings of helplessness, many of whom carry a vague and too general label of learning disability. No appropriate support group can be assigned without a proper diagnosis. At the same time, labels can also provide clarity and emotional reassurance, helping children and their families understand that their challenges are not personal failings, not to mention morally. Furthermore, legal protection and rights often depend on having a recognized label. So the impact of labels, both positive and negative, are undeniable. The issue does not lie with the labels themselves or with students who have disability. Label is not the problem. As Kaufman and Butter highlighted, a significant amount of time is actually wasted debating labels' role in special education. We need a clear understanding of their purpose and how they can be utilized effectively. While labels can sometimes foster negative perceptions, completely eliminating them may result in losing crucial support for students. But when applied thoughtfully, labels can be instrumental in identifying and addressing the unique needs of each child. A label in and of itself is neutral. The attitudes and stigmas associated with it is the one that can induce it to be negative. Even in the absence of labels, negative attitudes can still give rise to bullying, discrimination, alienation, and name calling. The real challenge lies in transforming those ill attitudes. A specific note on ADHD, which is different from other forms of neurodiversity, primarily due to its neurochemical origins, which often necessitate medical interventions. Interestingly, Professor Russell Barkley, a retired professor and also a public figure advocating ADHD, has pointed out the public health risks associated with untreated ADHD, while at the same time, another public figure, Dr. Ned Hallowell, views it as a potential asset. So, is ADHD a curse or a gift? This is a good study case. During the CHADD 23rd Annual International Conference in 2012, both of these public figures shared the stage. Both experts agreed that ADHD should not be simplistically labeled as either a gift or a curse, as this viewpoint fails to capture the complexity of the condition. I would like to bring forward the potential of character education as a framework for fostering a more inclusive school experience. Collaboration is essential and the heart of inclusive education. Pamungkas 2016 highlighted several key character values from character education framework in supporting inclusive education. It is an organic way of redesigning the schooling experience. So our conclusions are as follows. Number one, our responsibility is twofold: to protect the rights and the needs of our children with additional needs, while at the same time also recognizing the dynamic nature of disabilities which demand ongoing research. Our scientific approach should remain unaffected by societal misconceptions as we work toward genuine inclusion. Number two, stigma does not originate from labels. Rather, it stems from a lack of understanding and empathy among students, educators, parents, and society at large. Addressing these gaps require a steadfast commitment to continuous education. Last but not least, character education, with its focus on cultivating virtues both within and beyond the curriculum, offers a promising framework for advancing diversity and inclusion. Thank you.